Welcome back. It is Thursday. That means it's our weekly look at finance. Stephen Carlton, First Vice President from Janney Montgomery Scott. As always, welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about the Dow Jones in just a moment, hitting the 14,000 plus mark. We're going to start off tonight talking about the sequester.
Yes.
The doom and gloom of the sequester. If you watch some of those Sunday news shows just a week ago, just under a week ago, we were told that the sky was falling.
Yeah, people were concerned. I mean, I had people stopping in the street saying, you know, Steve, what's going to happen? I mean, we're going to wake up Monday, and it was kind of like, remember, 1999, the computers were all going to stop working, the end of the world, the government was going to shut down. We woke up Monday morning, and everything seems to be okay. So there was definitely a lot of concern coming into this.
Yeah, let's give some stats on this. A 2% cut in spending, that's what kicked in.
Yes.
The Obama administration had put that in place. They thought that it would never have got to this point. Republicans pulled his bluff. It went in. What was the number on the spending cut? It's
about $85 billion.
Okay, so $85 billion. And the United States spent last year $15 billion more than it did the year before. So we're looking at,
Exactly. People thought that this was a big cut from 2012. Actually, no, there was no cut from 2012. They just reduced the amount of the increase.
Okay.
And let's put it in perspective. Every American that's out there that had a job this year, that they had a 2% reduction in their income this year through the payroll tax deduction. So if the individuals in the working class in this country took a 2% pay cut, and it wasn't the end of the world for us.
So why can't Washington?
Why can't Washington do the same?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, as you said, we all woke up in January. January 1, we looked at our paychecks, 2% cut, and we're adjusting to that cut. It seems Washington, which is addicted to money, 2% seems like a huge deal for them. Well,
I was stopped on Common Ground. Sometimes I do that in the morning, and I was talking over coffee with a few of the people in town. And they were saying, I asked them, what did you do differently with this 2% cut? And they said, well, you know what, going out to dinner a little bit less often, maybe not going to the movies every weekend, making a little adjustments is really what needed to happen. You have to look at the government and say, you really can't cut 2% over the overall budget without having the end of the world. I think it's totally, reasonable to expect that they can do that without coming, the services coming to a grinding halt.
Yeah, we did a little research on this because two of the major areas that they were talking about being affected was airport security, the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, of course, your tax return. That you wouldn't be getting your tax return. So I placed a call to Albany Airport today. I dropped my piece of paper, which is always good. Don't mind me. And talked to Doug Myers. He's the spokesperson with Albany International Airport. He says, quote, no problems here. No problems with airport security. He said, give the Department of Homeland Security a call. So I did. They sent me a statement from the Department of Homeland Security. It says, they're looking at making cuts to their staff come Memorial Day.
Okay, so later on down the road this year.
So they're saying later on down the road, we've got a couple of months. They say, by that point, they will not be filling about 2,600 vacancies. There's the statement from them, a generic statement from the Department of Homeland Security. It seems like that's a fear tactic for me.
Well, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of concern, and sometimes that can be a valuable tool for making things happen. In this particular case, I think maybe there was a little bit too much the end of the world scenarios coming through, and it appears as though it's not going to be anywhere near as severe as most people thought initially.
Yeah, just a couple of footnotes to that. The TSA, which was talking about staff cuts because of the sequester, they just signed a $50 million deal to get new uniforms.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were talking a little bit about was a lot of people concerned about their tax returns.
Yeah.
People relying on that to pay their bills, to get caught up on Christmas expenses, for a lot of things that people depend on. And so I talked to a lot of CPAs in the area and a lot of business owners, and there was real concern a couple of weeks ago saying, what's going to happen with our tax returns? We depend on this money. Well, we've heard so far this week there hasn't really been any change.
Yeah, the IRS says that they're delaying furloughs for their staff so people can still get their tax returns. I've heard from some folks that their tax returns haven't come. They've been blaming the sequester. So far, that's not the case. It just means they're processing your paperwork a little slower.
So the good news is sequester wasn't nearly as bad as we initially thought. There are going to be some changes and adjustments. but maybe not quite severe as we initially were hearing.
All right, stay tuned for more sequester news in the coming weeks. Stay there, though. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. It was a big week for the Dow. It hit the 14,000 plus mark. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Welcome back. Stephen Carlson still here from Janney Montgomery Scott. We are talking about the Dow now hitting the 14,000 plus magical number. Big party on Wall Street, right?
Well, it's kind of anticlimactic. It's funny. You expect balloons and streamers and partying in the streets, but it's not happened. But it's great news. People have waited 4 years to come back in the stock market. The Dow now at an all-time high. And so this is a point for us to take. Everybody's saying, is it going to go higher? Is it going to go lower? I think maybe that's probably the wrong question to be asking.
Okay.
Now is the time to take stock in things. We're at 4-year highs, very high numbers, a lot of 52-week highs in the stocks. Now's the time to talk to your financial advisor, take a look at your 401ks, your IRAs. Now's the time to adjust the risk. Now's the time to have conversations. So I encourage everyone, take a look at your statements, make some changes. Now's the time to adjust things. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it's definitely a time to measure things out risk-wise.
Good place to leave it. Stephen Carlson, First Vice President, Janney Montgomery Scott. Thank you, sir. And you can check out our Look at Finance segment on the website. It's looktvonline.com. That's the website right there. We always post our segments online.